Hi, welcome to Wetpixel Live. My name is Adam Hanlon. I'm the editor of Wetpixel, and I'd like to welcome you. I'd also like to thank Aquatica very much for sponsoring this episode. Aquatica make a range of housing, sports, and accessories. Please head on over to aquatica.ca to check them out and what they do. I'm joined today by my friend and fellow contributor, Alex Mustard. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Adam. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And I happen to, Alex and I have been chatting, and I know that Alex has a problem in his life at the moment in that he doesn't have a housing. The housing's not there. Where's your housing, Alex?
Yeah, no, it's being serviced, and the reason that is remarkable is the last time I sent a Subal housing for service, despite using them for about 20 years, is never. And that's because it's such unusual times, and it's partly because I'm not diving and I've got time for these things, but actually it's the fact that I've had such a big break from diving that I think it's actually really worth my while. So it's down with Kevin at Aquafot here in the UK, who's one of the UK guys who does really excellent housing service and knows all the different brands and does a really, really great job on them. And I just it seemed a really great chance to get my main housing down there for a bit of TLC. And that's really because it's not been used. It's been 4 months since I last went diving. It's been 12 months since I last experienced jet lag. So they're quite unusual things in my life. And I've always believed that one of the reasons that my housings have been so reliable down the years, I've never been let down by them, is partly brand choice, but it's also because I'm always using them. And I do think you experience these problems more with the gear when they sit around and don't get used. And so that was my motivation for getting my gear down, at the beginning of March, knowing that we weren't allowed to dive in the UK till the end of March. It seemed a really great chance to get my gear away and get it serviced, get it ready. And I've also been working on getting myself ready. Once Caesar went back to school, been running most days of the week, trying to get my fitness back up again, ready for the big off. But I have to say my main focus is on the gear, not on myself.
So I think that's really what we thought we'd discuss. We discuss gradually, thankfully, the world is starting to open up again, and people are managing to get out and to go diving and obviously to take pictures underwater. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about some steps that we should consider taking. Both possibly with ourselves and our gear, but primarily on our gear, before we venture out into the underwater again. And so the first point, obviously, when we're talking about housings, lenses, everything else, is I think generally most of this stuff could probably do with a clean. I can only speak for myself, but certainly I tend to be not terribly religious about cleaning lenses, and I probably should be much better at doing it. So my apologies to my lenses, but this is a good opportunity now to dig the lenses out of wherever you keep them, dig them out of the lens cabinet, get some of the proper kind of lens cleaning solvent out, have a really good kind of do at making your lens really nice and sharp and clean again.
I think for me, the first step actually was to find all the bloody stuff.
Yeah,
it's been spilled away in different places. So actually, the first piece of advice I would say to them is actually put your whole gear together first. Get it all out, put it together. Because the only way you'll really be sure you aren't missing some piece that maybe is broken, maybe got lost, a long time ago, if it's been a while since you've been in the water, is put it all together, make sure you've got all the bits, put it together with your macro lens on, put it together with your wide angle lens on, put the strobes on, and use that as an opportunity to test it all works, which is obviously really important. Hopefully it should all still be working. I think the gear is much more reliable these days than it ever was. And then from that point, go into the giving it some care route, but making sure you've got it all. Much better to be making sure you've got it all now. You've still got plenty of time to go on the dealer's website, order the gear you need. If clamps have got all crusty or whatever, maybe a good time to change them over. So put it together, find all the accessories, find all those close-up lenses, focus lights, everything you would need as if you were going diving tomorrow morning. But do it now and give yourself time to make sure everything is working, all the accessories are there and working, so you're ready to go. And then I would go from that point and sort of starting with the lenses.
So clean lenses, and at the same time clean ports. Ports themselves, they get drips and things on them. This is a good opportunity to do these things. I think inevitably once we're busy packing for a trip, we tend to forget to do all the maintenance stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and then the other two that I've done or read done a couple of times actually is run the batteries through charging. I
yeah.
actually gave a lot of my batteries a bit of a workout in running things like Christmas lights over Christmas and things like that. So it was a good chance to run them down and get them a charge back up again.
Yeah.
So charge strobe batteries, camera batteries, and then definitely O-ring grease. Open up those housings, take the O-rings out, grease them up, maybe leave them if they have been left out. That's great. If they've been left in, they'll probably have a wiggly track embedded in them
Yeah.
from their normal position. And
Yeah.
so grease them, let them sort of relax for a bit, and then put them back in again in a slightly different position so they don't get that memory from being in that one place.
And just to expand that, obviously that would include all your O-rings on your ports as well. Check them, and also one that people often forget: if you have electrical connectors, particularly on your sync cables, there's an opportunity to pull those O-rings out. So generally, and while you're at it, inspect them. Have a look, feel how they feel, and whether you run them through your mouth, the not very hygienic way of doing it, or whether you can
Who
do it
would
with your
do
fingers.
that?
I don't know, but whichever way you use, this is an opportunity to inspect. Obviously, replace them as appropriate. Alex mentioned batteries, and I'm just disappearing out of shop for a minute to grab something. But I actually have a charger. It's a bit dusty, but this actually has a revitalizing. It has, it calls it. Refreshing function on it, and basically what it does is it works with just ordinary AA light batteries, and basically rechargeable batteries. And what it basically does is it puts them through a few cycles, and it actually gives you at the end, this battery is 50, 20, 100% effective. And obviously this is a good tool to now look at your batteries and go, they don't last forever, they are quite expensive. It's an opportunity to throw out the duds and replace them as appropriate.
That's right. I might consider that actually is buy just a single 4-slot kind of expensive reconditioning one to
Yeah.
use at home kind of when
Yeah.
I've got time like this,
Yeah.
and then use my cheap and cheerful light for travel simple ones when I'm in the field.
Yeah,
I
that's
like
exactly what I do.
Yeah, because then I can just spend over the course of a week just rattle through each set of 4 batteries.
Yeah. That's exactly what I do, and it's a really good indicator, I think, because inevitably, if you've got, I mean, I've travelled with sort of 16 batteries. There's a couple of duds, and this allows me to get rid of those duds rather than going, well, I'm going to bin all 16 because I don't know which ones are wrong. It allows me to focus on the ones that are wrong and replace them. Yeah.
And then I think, oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to carry on with batteries for a minute. Yeah, but carrying on with batteries for a minute. There's something else somewhere, a couple of other places where we have batteries in our camera system. Obviously, we have camera batteries. So charge them up. Generally, camera batteries, my experience, they're pretty reliable, but if in doubt, replace them. And then we have quite a few batteries in our housing and strobe triggering systems. Now, they're often the sort of so-called coin batteries, the flat lithium batteries that are used for these. Occasionally, we use pen lights in some kinds of strobe triggers too. But I think this, generally, my take on this, what I do is, at this point, I will replace them all. They're relatively inexpensive. It's almost impossible for me to figure out how much life is left in them. So this is a good opportunity on a clean break. Just take all the old batteries out and put new ones in. So
I always have them around ready to go.
Yeah. And so those would
order up a good, so you've always got spares in the house of the sizes you need.
Yeah, so vacuum systems, leak detection systems, strobe triggers, all of these are places where those types of batteries are used. And although, I mean, it's hard to be categorical about whether you need to replace them or not, if you replace them now, you're starting from a clean sheet and you're ready to go. And they, again, inexpensive, really.
So, well, you and I are both a bit unusual at this, in that for us, we're like 4 months without taking an underwater photo. This is crazy, uncharted territory. For the majority of underwater photographers, this is a video that they can also watch in between their more normal life of maybe 1 or 2 bouts of underwater photography a year. So it's just for us, it's abnormal times of like, oh my goodness, 4 months no underwater photography. Jumping on from that, so you mentioned the vacuums. It reminded me, as well as testing the lens focuses, the flashes fire, and all that sort of stuff, pulling a vacuum on the housing, while you're on land. If something has perished or gone off, or something's got broken in storage or whatever, find out now when you've got time to get it fixed. I would probably also, having put my housing together, take the camera out of it but fill the bathtub up and give it a good soak like I would at the end of a trip. I'm not
Yeah.
convinced there's any major need if you gave it a soak when you finished your last trip, but I think a camera would appreciate it. It's not going to be harmed by spending a bit of time in some fresh water.
So I think I think also, I mean, for those that don't have a vacuum, this is a good opportunity to make sure that there aren't any leaks that have
Yeah.
developed while it's been resting. So it can form the function of a rinse bucket or dunk bucket, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's the first point. I think the other thing, if it has got a vacuum on, what I would do is take the camera out, pull a vacuum, put it in the water, and twiddle the buttons a bit, because I think this again is not. O-rings do dry out, and although primarily they dry out due to lack of lubricant, sometimes moisture as well helps to keep them somewhat more flexible. So this is a good opportunity just to make sure that nothing has dried out while it's been sat dry. Yeah, so a good opportunity to test that as well. Yeah. Yeah.
And although it's less of a priority for me, even though it's the life support side of things, it is a good reminder that while you're giving your beloved camera all this tender, loving care, you maybe want to give a little bit of care to that less loved diving equipment.
Absolutely,
it does keep you alive. It doesn't take beautiful pictures, but it does keep you alive.
And I think for example, regulators, they need servicing whether you use them or not. So for those of us that have been locked down, for those that have been locked down for the best part of a year now, sadly, your regulator still needs to go and get looked at. I know it should be, every 3 years or 10,000 miles, but it doesn't work like that. It needs a so if you haven't used it for a year, send it away, get it looked at. Again, obviously, batteries, dive computer batteries, nothing worse than dive computer batteries failing, particularly on a trip. Get them changed, get them charged up as appropriate. And in general, spend a bit of time making sure that the other side of the underwater bit is working. And I think Alex, kind of coming full circle, really, Alex mentioned at the beginning that he's doing some work to get himself physically. I had to go to my diving medical yesterday. I was a little bit physical actually. So there we go. So I know I'm fit to dive. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to go for a run or anything else.
Absolutely not.
The doctor said I'm all right.
You have to do your test carrying a cylinder.
No, thankfully, because I think it would have killed me. But yeah, no, I had to jump up and down a bit and stuff to make sure that I was physically fit to dive. Anyway, but yeah, so make sure that you're, and probably really practically, quite apart from the health and fitness considerations, is also, we all haven't dived for a while. And for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, the water's cold, we're going back into really cold water. And make sure that we're comfortable with the diving conditions, reintegrate ourselves re-enter gradually.
That is a really good point, actually, because I think people are very, certainly here in the UK, people are, the underwater photography community are all chomping at the bit to be allowed to dive again. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who maybe don't normally dive in the UK, perhaps did some diving in the UK last summer when the lockdown ended in the summer, and it was sort of June, July, and the water on the south coast was 18, 19 degrees in Celsius, and now they go, oh right, lockdown's end. I did some UK diving last year. I'm ready for it, and parts of the place it might be 7, it might be 10 degrees colder than that, which is a massive change. So as big a change as that UK diving did last summer is compared to the tropics. You're now going colder again by the same amount, and I think that can be a big shock to the system. And potentially, quite a change. So yeah, I'd say definitely remember that you want to be safe in the water, and it doesn't mean even though you're spending all this time preparing your camera, you may not be. You need to be prepared not to take it in for maybe that first dive or so, while you get back into the swing of things and you get used to the temperature and the conditions.
And if in doubt, find a dive professional to give you a hand for the first, or an experienced buddy or whatever. Take it easy. I think this is the point. Dive with people that can keep an eye on you if you think you need it. So I think that's a really, really important bit of advice. Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that so the UK will be able to go diving from the end of March. So I'm pretty sure thereafter that
that's England actually. I think Scotland they're allowed to dive already, but they're not allowed to travel to dive.
Okay.
So it's country by country, and every country's around is different. Parts of Europe you're allowed to fly where you like to go diving. Other parts of Europe they're locked down. It's every country varies. So
Yeah, but I think the point I was going to make was that obviously you'll hopefully start seeing some new imagery appearing fairly soon on Alex's social media channels. Although he has been posting.
I'm diving into the archives at the moment. I'm having a great
Yeah,
time. Finally
yeah,
got a few minutes spare to do some processing. So, and
great.
there's, as always, you go looking for one thing and you find 5 other pictures that you're desperate to process. So having a great time actually.
So good place for inspiration. So which is the other part of it. Get some ideas together, go and do something different when you do get back in the water. Thank you very much, Alex. And nice to see you again as always. And we'd like to thank our sponsor again, which is Aquatica, for making this episode possible. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you all for watching. Please feel free to add any comments or suggestions to the comments box and drop us a like if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you next time.